Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you can, do me a quick favor. See that little red subscribe button at the bottom of the screen? Go ahead and hit that red button. It really does help me grow. It helps this channel grow, and it helps word get out about everything that I'm doing. Also, if you enjoyed this segment, if you enjoy this channel, make sure to subscribe to the Aaron Torres Podcast, which drops 3 times a week wherever you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Music, etc. With that said, let's get to the video that you came here for. But with that said, let's get to the topic of the day. And the topic of the day is, listen, we don't need to beat around the bush. We don't need to pretend. We don't need to set this up. We don't need to give, 20 minutes of context. We got major news in college basketball on Wednesday as it pertains to next season. And so, like I said, let's not beat around the bush. Let's not waste any time because the news is so big it needs to be discussed right now. That news being that Armando Bacot, forward, center, North Carolina, one of the key cogs in North Carolina's run to the national championship game, well, on Wednesday, he announced that he is coming back for his senior year of college basketball. No testing the NBA draft process, no waiting it out, no waiting to see. North Carolina on April 13th just found out that a potential All-American is going to be back for another year of college basketball. Let me just say this. There might not be a single bigger story in all of college basketball this offseason and as it pertains for the 2022-2023 season than this one. There could be other ones. Oscar Tshiebwe could return. We could get some crazy transfer. There will be no bigger story in college basketball this offseason than the return of Armando Bacot to North Carolina. And so let's get into it because I think this impacts North Carolina. I think it impacts college basketball, and I think it speaks to something that we may have to recalibrate in terms of how we cover and think about college basketball going forward. First of all, for North Carolina, I don't think we can put it any other way. This is about as big as, like I said, any piece of news that any program is going to get this offseason, okay? Armando Bacot was, by any tangible measurement, one of the best big men in college basketball this year. Not going to say he's the best. Not going to say it's definitive. Not going to say nobody was even close. There were a lot of good big men in college basketball this year. Kofi Cockburn, Hunter Dickinson, Oscar Tshiebwe, on and on and on and on and on. But Armando Bacot was absolutely one of the best. A guy that during the season averaged 16 points, 13 rebounds, all ACC first team. Some thought he should be ACC Player of the Year, including himself. I saw him get into it with Alondas Williams the other day on Twitter. But one of the best big men in college basketball announces that he's going to return. But more importantly, this guy just absolutely took off for North Carolina during their NCAA tournament run. I think you can argue that him and Caleb Love, that there was no single player in college basketball outside those two who became more household, big brand, marquee names than Armando Bacot and Caleb Love. Even somebody at like Kansas, like Ochai Agbaji was awesome, but he wasn't great across the tournament that like Armando Bacot was, and the numbers back it up. The numbers are unbelievable, and if you've forgotten, think about what Armando Bacot did in the NCAA tournament, okay? 20 points, 22 rebounds against St. Peter's. Well, okay, it's St. Peter's, it's a mid-major, whatever. People think it's no big deal, Elite Eight, into the Final Four. Final Four, he gets there against Duke, against that massive front line. I picked Duke because I thought they have no answer for Mark Williams, Paolo Banchero, and all that big size down low, Theo John as well. How about Armando Bacot going for 11 points, 21 rebounds, 8 offensive rebounds? This guy single-handedly basically willed them to the championship game. And then, oh, by the way, I don't want to say single-handedly. That's disrespectful of his teammates. But there was no bigger factor in that game than how Armando Bacot played. And then, oh, by the way, in the national championship game, playing on one leg because of a busted ankle, 15 points, 15 rebounds, almost leads North Carolina to an upset of Kansas. And so you talk about an impact player coming back. And now in the bigger picture, the impact that he could have on college basketball next year, and with North Carolina specifically, I think it's huge. Because, look, I'm like anybody else. I do these way too early top 25s. And when I looked at North Carolina, I sat there and said, I don't know what to make of this team next year. I think they're going to lose Armando Bacot. I think they're going to lose Caleb Love. And then if they do, what are they? They have no great recruits coming in. They, and that's no disrespect. It's just a fact. They don't have a big class in 2022. Maybe they hit the portal and find a guy. But essentially, if Caleb Love and Armando Bacot don't come back, it's a bunch of role players off this national championship runner-up that, oh, by the way, it is worth noting, by the way, They were a team that was an 8 seed, so it's not as though they had a great regular season. And he started to say Hubert Davis is basically building from scratch around R.J. Davis and I don't know who else. Now you have, at the very least, a center, a guy that you can build the entire program around, a guy that you know every single night is going to get you a double-double, 16 points, 13 rebounds this year. Imagine what he's going to be like with another offseason, with this team, with this program, with this staff, and how much better he could be this year. I'd also add, the fact that he's coming back, I'll just say this. I have no inside information. I have nothing definitive to share with you today that the public doesn't know. But what I would say is this. I don't think Armando Bacot absolutely definitively announces that he is coming back this year unless he has a pretty good idea that Caleb Love and everybody else is going to come back, right? Now, look, they might get a transfer here or there, and it is worth noting Brady Manick, of course, is not going to be eligible to return. He has no eligibility left. But if you're Armando Bacot, potential All-American, stock has never been higher. I'm not going to lie. I don't think he makes this decision this quickly if he does have a pretty darn good idea that Caleb Love could come back as well. And so if Caleb Love comes back with Armando Bacot and there's no major movement in the portal, I think we're talking about the preseason number 1 team. How can you not be talking about it if the 2 best players on that roster come back with R.J. Davis, who played at an elite level in the ACC and NCAA tournaments? That feels like the number 1 team in college basketball to me. So we'll see on Caleb Love, but I just think it's nothing but a good sign that Armando Bacot decided this early. I don't think it can be deemed as a bad thing that Armando Bacot decided. I think it probably leads to me to believe that Caleb Love is probably coming back for another year in college basketball. Finally, what I would say is this. I think Armando Bacot is the first guy of what is going to be a new generation of college basketball stars that make a decision that we haven't seen before. And it's something I talked about on my show earlier this week, Oscar Tshiebwe. Oscar Tshiebwe is a great example of this. Armando Bacot's a great example of this. Johnny Juzang's a great example of this. Back in the day, a guy that played as well in the NCAA tournament as Armando Bacot, there's just no way he's coming back to college basketball. And the reason is he can't make any money. And so he's got to take advantage of what he did in the Final Four, of the opportunities presented to himself, and he's got to go pro to capitalize on whatever money he's going to make, even if he's not a first-round pick, even if he's not a lottery pick. The only option for Armando Bacot was, I can either stay in college and make nothing or go pro and make something, no matter how small no matter how small that money is. Well, now, in 2022, with NIL, the landscape has completely changed. And so to me, this is interesting because I think this is the first example of a kid that 2, 3, 5, 10 years ago would have had no choice but to go to the pros, go to the NBA, go to the G League, go undrafted. I don't think he would have gone undrafted, but probably in the second round. And go and take whatever money you can get and become a professional. Well, now in college basketball, especially at the big programs, at the Kentuckys, the Kansases, the Carolinas, the Michigans, the Michigan States, the Syracuses, the UConns, there's real money to be made playing college basketball. And so I don't want to speculate. I'm not his agent. I'm not his lawyer. I don't do his taxes. I can't tell you how much he is going to make playing college basketball next year. But you're the face of a major, major, major brand in a state that loves the Tar Heels. I have to imagine he is going to be living pretty well as a college basketball player in 2022-2023. So Armando Bacot officially coming back. Let me just say, this is great for college basketball. This is great for North Carolina, who will probably be my preseason number 1 team if Caleb Love comes back. And I'll just say this, great day for college basketball. And this is proof. This is proof that the NIL, for all the criticism it's gotten, guess what? There is a positive side to NIL as well. Armando Bacot coming back to college basketball.